By Eric Olander from our internet desk. Eric, you've been following developments on Facebook and Twitter and on the net.
And what we're seeing on the web mirrors a little bit what we just heard, is the reliability of information is very, very hard to determine right now. There's a lot of little bit of information. Unfortunately, on the internet right now, there's a lot more certainty than what we've heard out of Tahrir Square just now. People have basically, for the most part, declared that Mubarak is in fact stepping down when we do not have that official confirmation yet. So this is one of the difficult aspects of this story right now. There's so much information coming in. It's all so coming from so many different sources that it's very difficult to follow. So let me walk you back in the timeline here. About an hour ago, on a BBC Arabic service report, in a package there was a phrase issued by a spokesperson that said Mubarak is going to, some comment about Mubarak. Some people on Twitter picked up that comment, and it just was like a match on kerosene. And on Twitter, it just exploded very quickly. Right now on Twitter, the hashtags to follow, if you can keep up, are the hashtags or those number signs, and the one for Egypt, Mubarak, and Tahrir are the ones that are moving extremely fast. Now, there's a combination of official news sources, France 24 among them, but also lots of individuals coming from all over the world, and there's a rhythm that goes to it. And you're starting to see, again, the certainty that's coming onto Twitter that isn't actually reflective of what the situation is on the ground. So approach Twitter with a little bit of caution.
And so what are people saying? They're saying that they think Mubarak's going to step down.
It's gone from, did you hear that Mubarak is going to step down, that in fact he is going to step down. And of course we don't know that yet officially. So that's the mood. So it can be very, very difficult to ascertain what is reliable and accurate information on Twitter when the information is moving so fast. Now, what a lot of news companies such as our own are doing is we're actually stepping back a little bit, and we've created what we call a live blog right on our homepage, where we're actually pulling through, digging through to find out what's reliable, what's not, only putting out reliable information. So a much easier way to follow these events is maybe to go to the France24.com homepage in English, Arabic, and French, and there's a live blog that's there that's consolidating the sources from Facebook, Twitter, and official news sources.
When you last looked at those sources, did you see talk of a military coup? We just heard that protester saying that he was worried about a military coup now.
You hear talk of that, but it's very hard to actually confirm it. And that's where the problem for us comes in, is that we're checking on the ground, but we're also checking online at other sources. Just because it's said a lot does not actually mean it's going to happen. And that's this echo chamber that starts to create in the middle of breaking news stories like this. So it's very easy to get carried away with that because you see it printed so many times. So just a little bit of caution coming to conclusions in a story this rapid.
So why is it so interesting to look at these Twitter, what's coming through on Twitter and on Facebook then?
What's truly unprecedented about what's happening right now is the speed of which information's coming and the amount of it. People are tweeting, obviously, from Egypt and from around the world, but because people are watching the story, and they've been watching the story for 2 weeks, it is really just the volume is overwhelming. You go to Twitter, and then 2 seconds later, you refresh the page, and you've got 60, 70, 80 new comments, and we haven't seen that kind of volume before ever on Twitter.
And Eric, how does this compare to Tunisia? Because you were, of course, following events in the same way during the uprising, the revolution in Tunisia.
Well, in particular, you have the United States engaged much more than you did in Tunisia. So you're seeing a much bigger U.S. presence on Twitter to reflect that. So a lot of the comments coming on Twitter right now are what is going to happen in Washington. So there was a whole Twitter thread on how U.S. generals and the top Pentagon brass had to interrupt their meetings. They're on live video conferences now with Cairo and planning out what are the next moves. Obviously, Israel is another major theme on Twitter. What is next for Israel and the relationship that Egypt, the United States, and Israel have together? So it's a much broader spread of issues than what we saw with Tunisia, and also the volume of people commenting is just so much larger.
Gripping stuff, isn't it, Eric? Okay, well, thanks very much.